It was not driven by the agency.
It was not, it was driven locally. Because we felt that we were being driven. It seemed to, my perspective last year was we were being driven.
Okay.
And so.
And maybe you were.
And that's fair enough. And I mean, you weren't here. You didn't. And I only know what I've been told, right? And so that may not have been. Folks may have been mistaken. Miscommunications occur. I'm not suggesting any negative motives on anyone's behalf. But so last year, there was, what we did was I think we went back through and we asked the community to come to the board meeting to comment on the calendar. And we also asked the students to put together a great presentation for us on what would be appropriate and what some of the concerns were and considerations would be with moving and different times. So I think your point about perhaps forming a committee is an excellent point. And so I would move at this point that we form a committee to.
Second?
I second.
All right.
Motion's carried.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerson. Any other comments or questions on the school calendar? Hearing none. Next, we have Terra Nova and other standardized testing. And the board was provided the current data test results.
Scott, there was a question that I think that maybe there wasn't as much information out there on how we're doing on some of our standardized testing. So I provided a little snapshot for y'all. I know it's not as intense as maybe we could go into. Knowing that the Terra Nova, as you well know, is a norm reference test that we give in 3rd through the 8th grade. We used to give it in 3rd through 11th grade, but we moved away from that, knowing that we're moving towards a criteria reference test as we move into the college and career ready standards. So I provided some scores, some historical scores there for your reading, and overall we do fairly well. When you look at 3rd grade from year to year, I'm not sure there's much value in that. But when you look at Gary from year to year, from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade, when you're looking, and that's called looking at cohort data, that's really what's important, I think, when we see if a child is growing, or see if they're at least maintaining how they progress forward educationally. So I wasn't able to get with the ed researcher to go in and do all the data that I would have liked to have presented. But I would like to see how we do with children who stay, how they progress, because our children are staying in our schools for a couple, 3 years. We have at least a core of them to do each year. So to see if they are growing or they at least are maintaining. The good news is that we're seeing increases in scores in the top 2 quarters, and we do very well. Anything that's at the 50th percentile or above means that we're better than 50% of the rest of the country that are in this norm reference group, which is a good thing.
Right.
But it doesn't mean as much as it might mean to an individual child as we move forward. I'm not sure about that. So I did the Terra Nova scores here for the schools, and then I also added at the end of the little section here the ACT scores and the SAT. We're in the South, although those of us from Louisiana think this is the North, but that's beside the point. We don't have many kids who take the SAT test. Most of these children will take the ACT. And the ACT scores there over the last several years are listed for you to read, and how they score in the SAT is also listed for you.
So it's my understanding the ACT and SAT score results from last year were to be available July and August this year.
Just don't have them yet. And so I will make a note, and Ms. Welver will make a note to remind me to have those for you. I apologize, I just don't have them yet. They could have them, he just didn't have them to put on there. I'm sorry. Okay. So would you send them to Mr. Welliver? Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. The one question in comparing the 2 grade schools. So for instance, if you look at comparing the two fifth grade cohorts or classes, at Van Voorhees, there seemed to be a downward trend. Obviously, we can't do cause and effect when we have a lot of students switching out, but they seem to be moving in different directions year over year.
So if I could, when I talked about cohort, so if I looked at fourth grade in 2015, in reading, the top two quarters, you had 62%. And those same children were at 58 in the fifth grade, if it was all equal with fifth grade. And then if it was, then language, it went down 3, and then in math, it went down 9. So, but if you looked at fifth grade from year to year, it looks dramatically different. So that's one of the things that I think you need to look at, how kids go from year to year. Now, if you do the same thing at McDonald, they go up significantly by 14, not quite the 19 than they do if you're looking straight across the line. You all see how I'm looking at that. And in fourth grade, it doesn't show any growth from one year to the next, but if it's the same kids that were in there in 15, it goes up 4 in fifth grade in the top two quarters the following year. I'm sorry that we don't have copies or don't have a display for y'all. We will try to do that in the future. It was just 11th hour edition. I was able to get these this week from our ed researcher. And I will, because I am not a statnoid or a data person. I do a lot of things marginally well, and this is about as best I can give you on the explanation of these things. I don't know if any of the principals have any further they'd like to go, but it's just, you just can't look at, oh my gosh, the fifth grade scores went down 20% from one year to the next. There could be any number of factors in there to include that there's a completely new set of kids in the fifth grade. Or we gave it 2 weeks earlier and we missed 3 of the concepts that are taught on Terra Nova. The Terra Nova is a norm reference test that's not aligned to our curriculum. So when you look at the math, the fact that at both schools we did pretty well in math and we changed the way we're teaching math this past year, that was a pretty big plus for us to say that our kids are good students and our teachers are doing a pretty good job. So I'll get an expert in here to give us some more detail to explain. It might be boring, but I'll get somebody in here to do that, you know, how stat people can be.
Thank you, sir. And the obvious point is, as parents see, because they have limited data to compare schools, if they see a difference in outcomes, they may make different choices, and whether or not they're based off of valid data.
If all things were equal, if both schools had 250 kids, and if both schools had the same teacher in each classroom that did things identically, you might be able to line them up side by side and compare them. But in reality, it could be that teachers have bad years too. You know, it's just the way it goes sometimes. I mean, I have sometimes bad weeks at this job, and I think that everybody understands you have bad weeks at your job too. So it's no one's fault, and I wouldn't make a change on the school. The good thing is, if you look at those scores, we're talking about the top two quarters, 75% of our kids are up there. They're way,
Are in the top 50%.
yeah, they're knocking it out. So now we're wondering why it's not, you know, 85% instead of 80% or 79.
That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? If you wonder why it's not higher?
Yeah,
That
it
should be
would.
always the goal, right?
It
To
should be
better?
always the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the goal should be 100%.
Right.
I mean, I still tell people that I was up at West Point and talking to the school board, and I said that, you know, I want 100%. Well, you don't want that because then you would do things to make it that way. No, I would never do that. I mean, the scores are as the scores are. The goal is every teacher wants every child exceed at the high level, the highest level. And clearly, every teacher would love to have 100% across there. So, but you make it, it's a very compelling point. We want 100%. That's really the goal. It's not, 80% above the 50th percentile, it's 100.
Thank you, sir. Are
You're
there
welcome.
any comments? Board? Hearing none. We will now, first, are there any other items from the board before we move to public comment? So we're moving to the public comment phase. I just remind the community, if you have a comment about a specific student or teacher or administrator, please let us know, not by name, but just that you want to talk about an individual, and we will convene an executive session. With that, I will open the floor to public comment.
I just have one thing. I was wondering if we could do.
If you could, please use the microphone so we can get it captured on our video that you can watch on Fort Knox TV.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Short, and I have a child here at Scott and two at McDonald. So I see on the calendar that next meeting is again at 1 o'clock on a Thursday. Elementary doesn't get out till 2. So I either have to find a sitter or I can't come to a meeting. So when planning the meetings, is there any way we could either do it in the morning, more in the day, or even after school? Because there are parents from Van Boris who couldn't come today because their kids got out at 2, and you can't make the meeting and be there too. So just something to think about.
If we held the meeting an hour earlier, say at 12, to allow parents to come to the meeting and still get back before the 2 o'clock release at the grade school, would that work?
Yes. So, and I mean, I know some of the schools couldn't be, let you do it at 12, but, there are 2 community centers, and my middle schooler is fine to go home by himself, but my elementary children are not.
Right.
So, yeah. So just maybe a different time earlier in the day or even after school's out. So, and especially on a Thursday when they get out at 2. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board on the possibility of changing the meeting time?
So I know I've spoken with Ms. McAllister about this she voiced this exact concern. I apologize, I don't have elementary school students, so it hadn't dawned on me, but I know it had dawned on her, and she's got many of the same demands. So with that being said, I think we've tried to keep a consistent time. So as we've what we're trying to do was look across, at least for, my recommendation is that we make a schedule for at least this semester, that we look out and we say, we try and move it back to at least 1200, if that, so 12 o'clock at noon. And I know that may put a strain on the schools who may be trying to, I mean, I note that we're using the cafeteria right now, so that may be difficult to have a school board meeting at the same time lunch is going on. But, so my suggestion is that we go back as a board, look at where and when can we have the school board meetings, because I think 1300 on Thursday is particularly a bad time because it takes out our entire elementary school populations. The other thing I would recommend is, as we go back and look at this, is that we did have most of our meetings last year at 1700 or thereafter. And I heard comments going both ways. So I think that at the beginning of the year, for the first semester, the majority of the meetings were in the evening. For the second semester, the majority of the meetings, I think, were in the afternoon. And again, I heard comments from both groups about what worked better, what didn't work better, and I think there's just a different group of folks who can make it at different times because they have competing demands. But I would recommend that we have 1 or 2 meetings over the course of this semester at a 1700 or later time. if that's something that you can support, Mr. Gerst.
Sure. I was gonna answer your question, Mr. Rock. I would have said yes to all three of your questions. Can we have it at a different time, a different place, and at a different date? Yeah, we can do anything. I think, we're all reasonable folks. So I'm fine with any time. I mean, it's, I'm not sure, I agree with you, Mr. Leader, that no matter what, it's gonna be convenient for some and not for others.
Right.
And it's not about convenience for me ever. So it's whenever you wanna do this is fine with me. If at 10 o'clock in the morning works better for folks, I'm fine with that. Although there's pre-K moms who have to get home to get their kids from the morning session at 10:30, but we have issue. So there's always somebody. Whether you have it on Thursdays or not, and this is an early dismissal day, so maybe Thursdays isn't the best day. I don't know. So I think that's something you need to think about too. And the location, there's going to be times when my boss, who works at Fort Benning, wants to join us, and so we have to have it at a location where we have our VTC connection. So that's the only, she begged off today, which was good, because I didn't have the VTC set up. And I don't know whether she'll want to join next month. She may. But I have to be flexible in that. So it doesn't matter to me whether we meet at a community center. It doesn't matter to me whether we meet over at the old Grittenberger building, if that's convenient for folks. But clearly 12 noon is fine, or 10 in the morning is fine. Just tell me what you need, and we'll work. The administrators, Dr. Washington made all this happen today, so thank you.
Any further comment? So I think the templated meeting date that we have right now is for the 15th of September, and there was to be a board walkthrough of King Solver in the morning, and then we had templated a Van Voorhees meeting at 1300. Would there be any objection on the board to moving the next meeting to 1200 at the same location at Van Voorhees?
No objection.
I'm good with that.
In terms of supportability from the school,
So it would be better if we used Grittenberger then for next. It's just not very nice over there, Grittenberger. But you all have been in there before, so is that all right? We can use Grittenberger and tour the Van Voorhees in the morning if that's okay. Is that all right?
are there any thoughts from the board?
I'm okay with that. We've also used Oak Park. Now, that can be a little small, but if Oak Park is available, we could also, it would make it difficult for the VTC.
Yeah, let me just find out whether she wants to come next month or not. If she does, then Grittenberger's pretty much the option.
I propose we table the specific discussion about the location, and we can come back to it asynchronously.
I'll ask Dr. Huddleston this week, and
Okay.
if she's wishing to come on the 15th, then that pretty much decides the Grittenberger's location. But I think we can set the time and date, right?
Okay.
The
So
15th, okay?
15th at 1200?
Is there VTC capability at Grittenberger?
There is, sir, yes.
Okay, so the next meeting is set on 15 September at 1200 at a location to be determined.
Thank you.
Any other comment from the floor?
Good afternoon. My name is Staff Sergeant Larnick. I work at the TTC here at Fort Knox. Sir, one of the things about the new school opening in the summertime, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think it would take a lot of stress off the educators, the contractors, and the students from having to rush during the school year, getting everything in place, and still staying focused on their education versus just knowing that the school's going to be set up during the summertime and their kids will come in at the new school year. So if that's at all possibility, I think a lot of parents would support the school opening up at a later date.
Thank you.
The other item is the school schedule. You all know I was pretty vocal last April about our school schedule. We had a new draft that was done in March, sir. It was released to us saying, here's your new schedule. The start date of, I believe it was this week. Then a month later, that draft was changed. The new date of August 1st was put out there again. old news, but it was very frustrating to a lot of parents, the back and forth. And at that time, and you can watch the show on YouTube, it was explained to us that it was an item that was done at hire. It was nothing that the board had anything to do with. It was a decision that was made up at DOD-ES, I believe, and that was just the way it was. So now to hear you say that that was not the way it was, it's frustrating, but to move forward, I think we need to get parents involved. The voting that took place on the school, not uniforms, but dress code was very helpful, and maybe we can put something like that in place at the beginning of the year saying, here are the proposed dates that we're looking at, would this work for you, and have the students and educators and parents be able to vote on that and be part of that decision-making tree versus just having one individual say, this is not gonna work for me, so here's a new date. So I think having that voting process again, allowing everybody to put in their 2 cents is a huge benefit.
Okay, thanks.
The other item, I just have one more thing.